So let's talk about selling your teaching resources online. So the nice thing about this is you can take work that you've already done and reuse it. You can repurpose it and list it and earn money. It does require a little bit of a learning curve of, whichever platform you're going to start with in terms of how to create the listing and how to actually list it and that kind of thing. But so today I'm going to show you just a few of the basic tips for you to think about as you look to sell your resources online. I think that this is one of the best side hustles for teachers, especially if you're ADHD like me, because you get to use some of your creative talent, and it also gives you a nice break from being face-to-face with students all day. So I'm also going to talk briefly about simple systems that can help you, especially if you struggle with executive function challenges like time management, prioritization, decision making, task paralysis, all of that fun stuff, and as well as perfectionism. So let's get going. So as you think about choosing where you want to sell your resources, I would suggest picking one and just focusing on that one. So you're not going to try to sell at first on Etsy and Teachers Pay Teachers and this and that and the other thing. So just pick one. And different platforms have different pros and cons, which I will talk more about in other posts. But something like Teachers Pay Teachers is generally regarded as like a pretty good, place to start. So, just remembering that like everything takes time, and as with anything that you're doing online, it's not going to create buckets of cash overnight. So just, setting those expectations for yourself that if you are looking to make some, digital income, if you're looking to sell products online, that's a great way to use your knowledge and expertise in a creative fashion, but also realizing that it's not going to be like a fast cash situation that you might get on, delivering food to people, for example, would give you like a quicker turnaround on your cash in hand. But that said, like setting up a Teachers Pay Teachers store, for example, and staying consistent with it over time can really pay well. I know lots of people who've done that. And I myself am looking at starting my first Teachers Pay Teachers shop here soon too. So, yeah. And I will be linking to some of the people I know that offer incredible resources around this topic. So definitely stay tuned for those links. They're all incredible. So with that, you want to think about creating repeatable routines and batching, like figuring out what you're going to do for the next quarter. And then once you get more familiar with the process, like breaking it down into steps. So, first you might decide, okay, I'm going to reuse my best classroom worksheets, like the things that you love or your students really love. Or you could think about like your favorite activities that your students request year after year. Like I, as an elementary music teacher, I had certain dances and games that year after year after year, like no matter what, these were things that students would always request. And so, as I look to design materials around that kind of thing, I'm going to start with those resources because like I know they're solid. And for sure you have things like that too that regardless of what you teach, things that light you up or things that your students are always requesting, that kind of thing. And then you can also look at, okay, I'm gonna make a template for myself to have a cover, like a cover image, a mock-up. And, for this next 6 months, even, like, I'm going to just keep using that template. Again, I'll link to those other resources that they can tell you more about their recommendations for that, like for the details around that. But in general, like, the less guesswork you need to go through, less decision making when it comes time to create your materials, the better. So just, deciding ahead of time, like, okay, these are the 3 favorite activities. These are the best worksheets that relate to those activities. These are the even like 2 templates that I'm going to always use when I'm creating my mock-ups. I'm going to always have a timer and set it for 25-minute intervals. And like, I'm going to hold myself accountable to stop at, after an hour and take a break and things like that. Like, all of that can help you stay fresh and stay consistent and not get sucked down rabbit holes like some of us tend to. Just saying. Some lower pressure marketing ideas would be to pick one social media platform only. So let's say you're going to focus on Instagram, and you're going to make it a goal for yourself to put out at least one short reel a week where you're highlighting different products, or talking about, ways that people can use those products, going into tips about things to think about when you're making the product, or, what you love about the product, and just trying to keep it simple for yourself. So, one platform, one goal that you feel like you can stay consistent with. And then once you are getting consistent with that one video a week, for example, you can look farther ahead into the future and see if you want to stay with that goal or maybe make it a little bit more challenging for yourself. So if you have ADHD or autism or other neurodivergence, you're going to also want to honor your brain wiring and knowing ahead of time, like, okay, I'm going to need a checklist for all of the steps that I need to remember to go through each time I'm making this product or this type of product. And then reminding yourself with a sticky note that you put on the side of your computer, or to remind yourself to look at the checklist as you go through. Those kinds of things can be really helpful. I mentioned timers already. Body doubling is super effective if you have somebody, or even if you wanted to use one of the services out there, like there's some good ones that I'll link to here, but that can really help hold you accountable and keep you on the up and up with your productivity. And then also having a place where you can kind of park your random genius ideas that are going to come to you when you're, in the middle of batching videos for, the next few weeks, so that you don't lose those ideas, but they also don't derail you and take you off course of what you're trying to accomplish. So having like a notebook or a document that you can just dump those ideas in and then get back to what you're doing, that can be really helpful. All right, so to wrap up, you're going to start small. You're going to start with something that you know and love. Of course, you also want to be thinking about profit. I mean, that's sort of the whole point of starting a side hustle. So, start looking online at some of those platforms and seeing what is selling, what is popular, and seeing if some of what you know and love also happens to match up with that. That can be really helpful. Choosing your platform, creating repeatable routines for yourself, doing simple marketing, and then making sure that you are setting yourself up for success by honoring your own brain, and using checklists, accountability partners, and timers, visual routines, different things like that to help keep you on track. All right, I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget to check out the pillar posts that this post supports, as well as the other supporting posts, which will be coming soon, that talk about some of the different side hustles for you to consider. All right, take care. Bye.